Hey everyone, I'm doing this video as a follow-up to my video that I posted recently regarding the ARC triangle and Scientology basics. I received some questions and comments after posting that video that made it clear that there are some points that I should probably clarify and talk about a bit more about this subject of reality in Scientology. And in order to do that, I thought I would get some help. Because rather than just give you my own experience and information out of my head, I thought, well, wouldn't it be more interesting if I talked to another former member of Scientology who was also very highly technically trained and experienced and also a Sea Org member. So I reached out to Sunny Pereira and she agreed to be part of this. So hi, Sunny.
Hello.
Very glad to have you on here.
Thank you.
Yep. Now you were just so people are clear on who you are, you have spoken out. You were featured in the SP Times at one point, right?
Yes, in 2010.
Okay.
Yes.
But you have not been somebody who comes out and makes videos and does stuff like this.
I just never have. Nope.
No. Okay, good. Well, I'm really glad that you agreed to do this one. I think this will be interesting. And you were in the Sea Org like me for 17 years.
Yep. 17 years.
Okay, and born into Scientology.
That's correct.
Right. Okay, cool. All right, well, let's just go ahead and get right into it. The first thing I wanted to do, have you seen people talk online about how in Scientology there's this idea that's what's true for you is true?
Yeah, I mean, there's various interpretations of that. Yes.
Right, exactly. And I thought the first thing we might do, because I didn't actually do this in my video, it didn't occur to me to do it at the time, is to clarify exactly what Hubbard means by that statement of what's true for you is true, because people misinterpret that out in the big wide world, not knowing or reading the actual Hubbard material on it. They hear that line and they then sort of think, oh, well, Eddie Scientologist thinks that whatever he thinks is true. Just because he thinks it or something. You know, what's true for you is true. Well, therefore, if I think that elephants are blue, then it must be true because it's true for me. And that's not, I mean, would you agree that's a misinterpretation?
My understanding of that is more as, you know, as it applies directly to Scientology and the Hubbard documents, is you can read a document in Scientology and decide if you think that's a true statement or not. The original Hubbard idea was that you could take what information you wanted and discard information that you didn't believe in Scientology. You could throw parts of it aside if you didn't agree with it and keep the parts that you felt were true to you. That's how I originally understood it.
Right, me too. Which is not to say that that's necessarily a good way of looking at things, but it's different from how people have interpreted it. So I thought what I would do is actually just read a bit from the actual Hubbard article on this, just so we could get exactly what Hubbard said, so it was totally clear and it's not just your interpretation, my interpretation, whatever, our memories of it. So it actually comes from an article that Hubbard wrote called On Personal Integrity. And in it, Hubbard said, what is true for you is what you have observed yourself. And when you lose that, you have lost everything. What is personal integrity? Personal integrity is knowing what you know. What you know is what you know. And to have the courage to know and say what you have observed, and that is integrity, and there is no other integrity. Nothing in Scientology is true for you unless you have observed it, and it is true according to your observation. That is all. So I'd say you nailed it as far as how you just interpret it, you know, how your memory of that was.
I still have, I've never seen a Thetan.
Right.
I've just never seen a Thetan. Have you?
Well, you know, oddly enough, I have not. Yeah, I talk about the fact that
Still looking for one.
Yeah, it's kind of a subjective experience, you know. Hubbard says that all of Scientology is based on observable phenomena and scientific truth and experiment and case studies, And yet, there is no objective proof of a spiritual existence or of a thetan. Because a thetan is something that doesn't even exist in the physical universe. It is not matter, energy, space, or time. So how do you show that such a thing exists? You can only use subjective experience. And if you take that on faith, everything else proceeds from there. Would you say that's accurate?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's accurate.
Yeah, I think so too. Okay, well, let's go ahead. What I wanted to do is sort of compare and contrast our ideas on reality from when we were Scientologists.
Okay.
And you like I said, we're very highly trained. You were overseeing case supervision and people's auditing and stuff. So you were pretty immersed in Hubbard's ideas at one point, as a very trained person. So I thought you'd be a good person to bounce some ideas off of. So first off, reality. What was your understanding of the definition of reality in Scientology?
Agreements in the physical universe. The agreement of things around you. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's the simplest way. Yeah.
That's right. Exactly. I had the same thing. And from the video that I made and from Hubbard's, works on reality and ARC triangle, he says reality is really nothing more or less than agreement. We agree that something is real or is true, and therefore it is.
Right.
And he talks about the example he gives often is the idea that you see a table, sitting in the middle of the room. You see the table, I see the table, we can touch the table, feel the table, smell the table, and so therefore we agree there is a table there. And he then counterpoints that with, and then a person could walk in the room, we could have 20 people in the room, all agree there's a table there. And then, Joe Schmo could walk in and say that there's an elephant in the middle of the room. And we all go, yeah, dude, we don't agree there's an elephant, and therefore we label him insane. Because that's, insanity, according to Hubbard, is not agreeing with what everybody else is agreeing with.
Having no reality.
That's right. That's right. Didn't Hubbard say that the essence of being OT is disagreeing? You're supposed to disagree with the physical universe. You're supposed to disagree with laws. You're supposed to being OT. I remember this was something that we would talk about. People would say this in Scientology, that at least around me, they would be like,
really?
Yeah, you got to. Well, every single reg cycle, right? Every time somebody's trying to sell you something when you're in Scientology, they're always telling you how you have to disagree with the physical universe. You have to disagree with your bank. You have to disagree with the
rise above it.
That's
rise
right.
Above it.
That's right.
You have to rise above your bank,
yes.
Your reactive mind bank, and I guess your bank account too.
That's right. That's right. That's how he would put it. He said in KSW, we have to rise above an avid craving for agreement.
Yes.
And yet he defines reality as agreement. So in a way, he was sort of preaching. I just thought of this. He was preaching to act insane.
Yeah.
I had never thought about that before. Okay, but and so really, if being OT, if the essence of being OT is disagreeing with all the things you've been agreeing with for all these eons, then isn't that really making you insane? I mean, that's just
right.
That's kind of funny, huh? All right. But yes, reality being agreement, right? This is the idea with Scientology. Now, there is, I think we've kind of differentiated this what's true for you is true thing, right? That's not really how Scientologists think. They don't think, well, if I think that there is if I think my cat is a dog, then my cat is a dog for me, because that's true for me. I mean, any Scientologist would look at somebody saying that and go, dude, that's not
far-fetched.
Right.
It's way off. Yeah, even for Scientology, it's way off.
Right, exactly. That wouldn't be the case. How were cases regarded? Because you oversaw auditing and case supervision, right?
Yeah, lots.
So if somebody came in and said something that was kind of unique, let's say, like, for example, they could talk to LRH telepathically. They could talk to Hubbard Hubbard's dead. He's been dead since '86, right? But if somebody came into Scientology and as a trained or Scientologist, if they started talking about ghosts or spirits or talking to Hubbard or having telepathic connections with, dead Scientologists or something, what would be the response from a trained case supervisor point of view?
Well, the immediate understanding, I guess you would call it an evaluation that the CS would have, which would be in the file only, it would never be told to the person, is that person is completely overwhelmed by their own reactive mind, and they need the lightest touch possible to get them out of that state. But then at the same time, you get somebody who walks in thinking like that, and then by the end of OT7, that's exactly how they're supposed to behave.
Right. Right.
So they're insane at the beginning of the bridge, and they're OT at the end of the bridge, and it's exactly, look, I can still talk to LRH from the beginning to the end of the bridge.
Right?
Yes.
Is that not hilarious?
Uh-huh.
Like you would think, given Scientology's dogma and the science fiction aspects and elements of it, and the whole track stuff, right? There's spacefaring civilizations, Marcab, XENU, all that stuff. Even without XENU, I mean, just talking about the lower level stuff, before you even get to the OT material, there is a wealth of information Hubbard puts out about spacefaring civilizations and life, trillions of years ago here in the physical universe, and how we were all part of, civilizations on other planets, and there's spaceships and people flying around and battles and invader forces and all kinds of stuff that you can read about without having to go anywhere near the XENU stuff.
If anybody said that kind of stuff that LRH says from those kind of lectures, if they had said that when they came in, they would be at the lowest possible level of light touch, locationals every day. I don't know if I need to explain what a locational is, but a locational is just having the person walk around and look at things around them and get themselves oriented to their own environment.
That's right.
You don't touch people like that. They are sit risks
Right? Isn't
that
there and, hilarious that that's such a... We
sit there and listen to it from Hubbard, and then we won't accept it from anybody who wants to walk in off the street and say the same thing.
Right.
It's kind of odd.
It was very interesting. It was very interesting. And it's not like there were specific, or were there specific instructions from Hubbard to do that?
It's an overwhelmed PC. It's called an overwhelmed pre-clear. It's covered in bulletins.
All right.
Look in the technical volumes. There's all kinds of stuff that you can do to help someone like that. But when somebody's stuck back where they're either always looking at the before this lifetime and can't see anything in this lifetime, or can't remember, what they had for breakfast type of a thing, when they first walk in, that's an overwhelmed person, and you do super light processes on them.
Wow. And yet here they are, basically fully agreeing with the things Hubbard is talking about in his lectures. So there should be a shared reality there.
And there isn't.
And there isn't. That's right. Isn't that weird? And somehow these two things are able to exist at the same time in a person's head as a trained Scientologist. He's a kid gloves, light touch, overwhelmed case, completely, this close to being in a straitjacket.
Yes.
Right? And yet he's saying all the things Hubbard is saying over here that we all agree with. We all go, yep, spacefaring civilization, spaceships, invader forces, UFOs, alien beings. Yep, we totally agree with all of that. Oh, this guy is nuts. Right? Just had to comment on that, because that is a huge... If you want to talk about real contradictions in Scientology, there's a big one.
Yeah.
Right? There's a huge one.
I've got stacks of them. Got stacks of contradictions.
Oh.
We don't need to go there today.
Okay, all right. We'll
There's stacks of them.
We'll do another one. Okay, good. Now, let's go ahead and dive into this thing on, just so we can kind of show the hypocritical nature of reality inside the world of Scientology. I mean, much less going, comparing Scientology definitions of reality with outside philosophical ideas of reality, just within the world of Scientology, they're not even making sense to themselves because of these contradictions, right? So we don't even have to start pulling in Socrates and Plato and Immanuel Kant or something. But let's kind of go there a little bit. Let's talk now about what was your idea as a trained case supervisor in Scientology of how the physical universe existed. How was all of this created, and what did that have to do with agreement and reality?
I'm just going to put like a disclaimer here because I'm talking about stuff of how I thought back then, and sometimes people think this is my current state of mind. When I'm talking about Scientology stuff, talking about the way I thought back then. So some people seem to think that I'm still stuck back there.
Ooh,
I'm
no.
right here.
Yeah, no, not at all.
It's happened a few times to me where I'm like, okay, I just want to make that clear. Okay, in Scientology, reality is basically two people, or I mean, you're asking about the physical universe itself?
Yes.
Is that what you asked me?
Yeah.
Okay, the physical universe is basically our agreement as beings, as spiritual beings. We have made it be here, and we hold it here by having an agreed upon reality. We have all agreed that this is a table, therefore it's a table. And the only way to actually get rid of that table is for all of us to change our reality.
Right, exactly. We would all have to agree there's no table there in order for there to be no table there.
That's right. And there's billions of us, and we never agree on anything. So
that's right. We can't even agree the world is round, much less that there's
Pepsi and Coke, right?
Exactly. No yeah, that's right. Tastes great, less filling. So, okay, now that being the case, I always kind of had this idea in my head, exactly what you just said, that the table is there because we all agree that it's there. And I can individually convince myself that maybe there is no table there. And so for me, there would be no table there because I would act as though there's no table there. But in the back of my head, I always knew, yeah, but if I walk into it, I'm still going to run into it.
Right.
So I could treat it as though I have my own reality, my own understanding of existence. And I might act accordingly and therefore not try to put anything on the table, not try to sit at the table, not try to do anything with the table because I don't think the table's there. But that's not really the same thing as the table objectively not being there.
Right.
Right, because everybody else is going to see it.
Right.
However, if we could get everyone to agree, no table.
It would be gone.
Then it would be gone because for all, and here's how I sort of thought of that in my head, and I wanted to see what your deep thought on this was. My deep thought on it was, well, here was my interpretation of that, right? Because I went, well, yeah, but this stuff is pretty solid. I mean, you can knock on it and smell it and taste it and, feel it and all this kind of stuff. So what I would think to myself would be, even if objectively the table was still there, if all of us agreed it wasn't there, it might as well not be there because none of us are going to acknowledge its existence in any way. So therefore, it might as well not be there, was kind of how I sort of thought of that, if I thought about it kind of deeply. But at the same time, you could have argued me very easily into, yeah, no, actually, that table disappeared. It's gone, gone, gone.
There's a lot of ways you could kind of interpret like how it could disappear, but I think, when you're deep in Scientology, you try to figure out, okay, you try to make it all make sense.
Yes. Yes.
And we come into the subject of matter, energy, space, and time, and the Scientology understanding of matter, energy, space, and time is that matter, it consists of energy, space, and time.
Yes.
So if you delete energy, space, and time, the matter is not going to exist anymore.
Right.
That's how you make the table disappear in Scientology. if that
Okay.
makes any sense to you.
Well, Hubbard, well, okay, now let's actually get into this.
Dissipation.
Yeah, because this actually connects, okay? So just since we have to get kind of, and I asked you on here because you and I both have this understanding of the minutia of Scientology, at a deep level, right? Which is, Hubbard says energy is a zero-sum game. That energy isn't little particles in space. Energy is just he defines it as a motion within a motion within a motion. It sort of exists because we kind of consider that it exists, not because there's a real physical thing there, right? At its deepest level. Now, science these days has taken this down to quarks, right? And they don't, and as Neil deGrasse Tyson says, things get a little funny at that level. Stuff starts acting in a very strange way. And Scientologists would jump all over that bandwagon if they were watching Neil deGrasse Tyson. They'd be like, yeah, see? Because Hubbard said that at the most basic level, it kind of doesn't really exist anyway. Now, that was my understanding, and I specifically wanted to bring this up because I wanted to get, what did all your word clearing on energy and matter come up with on that?
I don't think I ever remember even Hubbard saying that about energy. I don't know if I studied it that deeply, actually.
Okay.
I mean, you must have gone down a little rabbit hole looking that one up.
Yeah, it's in the tech dictionary. Energy is sort of, motion within motion or vibration or within vibration or something. He very clearly put out there that energy at its bottom level was a nothingness. It was simply something that existed as a motion. And you kind of go, well, how do you have a motion if something is not in motion? But Hubbard didn't say. He said very clearly, no, it's not that. It's simply this motion. It's this potential. It's this force, right?
It's a motion between two things, like an A and a B. You mean a motion between?
No, just a little bit of motion.
Okay.
Kind of imagine.
I mean, it reminds me. Yeah. It reminds me of the axioms. The Scientology axioms. The first decision was this decision to be. And I remember thinking, like, who made the decision to be if there was nobody there to make the decision? I mean, that was one of those. That's how you're describing energy to me. So
yeah, no, and the reason I bring that up is because Hubbard was really enthralled by the idea, going all the way back to 1950 when he first started talking about this stuff. When I was doing my research for the ARC Triangle, I was diving into all of his lectures on this. And he was really into how matter didn't really exist because matter is mostly empty space, which is, you look into physics and that's true. There's gallons and gallons of nothing with little tiny particles right at the atomic level. So he said we can kind of take matter, out of the equation because all matter can reduce down to, the head of a pin or something if you take all the space out of it. And really that matter that would be left over would really just be this little motion, vibration within vibration thing. And that is, in the end, if you go down to the essence of it, it isn't a thing, it's a motion. And therefore, none of this really exists, and therefore, it's all kind of an agreement. And that's how we come back to that definition of reality, right? It's all here because we kind of agree and believe that it's here, and we've been, or if you look at it from the as we're all thetans and victims of oppression for trillinia, we were convinced that it's real, but it's really not. It's all we're all just agreeing that it's real. Does that sound like how you were looking at things?
I mean, my understanding of it is that MEST exists, matter, energy, space, and time. And MEST is reality. And reality is here because all of us as spiritual beings have agreed on this universe. That's the Scientology axioms.
Okay. So. Okay. And how did you have, looking at, I guess sort of maybe the last thing I want to look at on this in terms of, because I think we've made it clear how Hubbard and Scientologists regard reality. But if you're going to go OT, right, even if you didn't hear anything about that business of disagreement that I was talking about earlier, there is this idea that as an OT, you have godlike abilities. How, and you actually made it to the OT levels when you were in Scientology, right?
Up to number 5, yeah.
Up to
OT
5. Okay. And not only as a person who received it, but also as somebody who was trained on the materials of delivering it too. Is that right?
Not the certified route, but on the RPF I did learn.
Okay. You read the Hubbard issues on it. Okay.
It's been a while, but yes.
Right. Okay. Well, again, I'm consulting your own understanding of this and your own memories of your understanding of it. But I was wondering, how did you think or connect the dots between going OT, achieving these high OT levels, and having these godlike abilities to create matter, energy, space, and time on your own bat? Or did what did you think about that stuff?
You mean like each Satan creating the physical universe?
Or,
is that what you're talking about?
Well, or, what was okay, maybe I should back up a step. What was your concept or understanding of what it meant to be OT?
Well, I mean, the OT levels start at OT 8, and we're on pre-OT levels, quote
right?
unquote.
Okay,
so,
right.
With that in mind, I never thought that I was going to have these superhuman abilities or anything like that. I was, when you're doing those levels as an OT, you're so spun in on what's going on in your own head and your own body because of these things that are talking to you all the time,
right?
Supposedly, right?
Right.
So
you're referring to the body thetans.
Yeah, I was. Yes, you're okay. Being taught that these things are all over you. They're causing somatics, so making you have feelings in your body, and they're also on OT4. They're numbnesses caused by drugs, and you're sitting here addressing all this on your person. So that once you clear all these out, then way up there, up the line, you're going to be able to have these powerful abilities. But I think a lot of people get, I guess pressured would be the word, as an OT, that they have to show something. So they try to talk to these Satans around them to make themselves look like they can find parking spaces or whatever it is that OTs do.
Right.
I don't know how they found a parking space. I really don't.
No, because when you learn what's on the OT levels, you're kind of like, this has nothing to do with finding parking spaces.
Right.
Like at all, right?
Right.
Pardon me while I drink some Kool-Aid here.
That does not look like Kool-Aid. My coat.
My great Kool-Aid. Oh, yeah. So, okay, so I guess where I was going with that was kind of, an OT is supposed to be able to be, or is defined as a being who is at cause over matter, energy, space, time, life, and form. So what was your idea of that in an ultimate sense?
I felt like by doing my OT levels, I was supposed to be able to have these things better under control. There was that feeling of, you grow up thinking like all the things in the material world are there. And then you get taught, it's all just an agreed reality. And then as you go up the OT levels, you're like, oh, these realities are fake. So you get some funny changes in conception of what reality is or what you're seeing. Oh, these things aren't really real. You start making yourself think that way, but there's nothing that's actually changed in the physical universe. It's in your head with the OT level.
That's right. That's right. Because I had the idea that at lower levels in Scientology, there's the idea in auditing of creating mock-ups. right? In other words, imagination. I mean, you use your imagination.
Yeah.
You envision a thing, right? Let's say I envision or I mock up or I create a, you know, a saucer of tea or something, or cream, right, here in front of me, and I imagine it, and it's my mock-up. And Hubbard talks about when you're OT that you could mock something up strong enough or hard enough that you could bring it into the real world.
I've never seen that happen.
Okay.
I
never saw it happen.
Huh?
Oh, I never saw it happen.
Yeah, I mean, I've never seen anyone show a physical manifestation of an OT ability. But a little note on your idea of the mock-up is
Yep.
when you, as a case supervisor, when you have a pre-clear mock something up, any idea that he comes up with in his mind is something that's already been in his past. It's not something he's making up in his future. Did you know that?
No, I did not know that.
You've had that cup of tea that you just mocked up. It could have been millions of years ago, but that exact cup of tea that you just imagined.
Interesting. Okay.
So
Well, how would you account for a new creation? What would you call that?
There isn't.
Oh, there isn't one. Oh.
You've experienced it all.
Oh. Okay. Well,
You just have to imagine it, and you've already experienced it.
interesting. Well, that might relate in some weird sort of way. Where I was going with that was, I'm kind of like, if you could create something and bring it into the physical universe, or mock it up hard enough that other people could see it or experience it too, then you were literally creating a new reality all on your own.
That's right.
And doesn't that seem to, in some way, how would that relate to that idea of reality as agreement? Like you'd have to somehow be so powerful that you could get everybody else to agree that something is real that you yourself came up with. Would that be an accurate way of describing that?
Well, Hubbard did it with an entire religion, didn't he?
Well, I was going to go there, right? Yeah, you can do that with ideas.
Yes,
but
not with material things.
Material things is where the magic is, right? Because you can come up with an idea and you can proliferate it or disseminate it, and people will accept it or not, and you could grow your idea. And everybody does this every day, in one fashion or another, to one degree or another. But the magic is everybody, and nobody sees any magic in that. That's kind of like, well, yeah, that's it's communication, and that's ARC, and that's just how we come up with things, right? Those are just ideas. But it becomes magical if that idea can somehow be translated into a thing, right? Like, ooh, you created a thing. It's funny. It's almost like that's how we gauge, the validity of these. I don't know. I think there's a lot of corollaries to that. But did you have that idea also? That would be like an ultimate sort of test of an OT or something that they could because
as an OT, you're trying to get away from the physical universe unmessed and become spiritual. That's where you're. I don't get into other terms, but 0 to 8.
Yeah.
8 to 0. Your books. 0 is your massed. 8 is infinity. You're trying to go from being massed to being infinity. So in Scientology, you're never going to have anybody trying to prove in the physical world their OT abilities, because that brings them closer to massed and less away from being a spiritual being. I'm just telling you, that's how they see it.
No, you're absolutely right. And I'm shaking my head right now because it's another one of these gigantic chasm-sized contradictions.
Yeah.
That exist in Scientology. Is you're supposed to be at cause over matter, energy, space-time, life, and form, which means you have the ability to start, change, and stop that thing. You can control it, in other words. That's Hubbard's definition of control. And yet, you're supposed to be moving away from an obsessive need or desire to, have or control mess. And so the proof of being OT in the real world is really doing nothing.
It's a complete disconnection from mast.
Right.
Is what it is.
Right. And
it's a complete disconnection from the physical universe.
Right.
From everything material.
That's right.
Everything material, including bank accounts.
Exactly.
Family members.
That's right. And Hubbard would actually deride Buddhist or Lamist meditationists, people who would go sit on a mountaintop or in a cave. Hubbard would make fun of those people as being disconnected from reality and off doing their own weird thing, and it was a trap and it wasn't going to go anywhere. And those people who go off and try to disconnect from the physical universe are really the ones who are the most trapped in the physical universe. You remember that?
Mm-hmm.
And yet, here's the contradiction again. Most trapped in the physical universe, valid definition of an OT and what an OT is supposed to be doing, kind of the same thing, but right?
But it's like a loop. It's like the opposite end of the spectrum. It's the same the spectrum. It's the same concept that we talked about, where the person comes in and is talking the way Hubbard does in his lectures and is labeled crazy.
Right.
And then all the way at the end, they're going to be exactly the same way, but now they're an OT.
Right.
It's exactly the same.
Right.
And that was one of the things that woke me up when I was CSing, and I would find, people acting crazy, and they get, you're clear, you're OT, you're OT7, you're OT4, and I'm like, these people are nuts. Are you serious? You're passing these people on. I was like, no, I don't want to be part of this anymore. Thank you very much.
That's right. That's right. And getting serious for a moment, it is these kind of cognitive dissonances, these contradictions that exist in Scientology that are the crazy making part of it.
Mm-hmm.
Right. They're very laughably goofy, and if you can kind of just step back from it and look at them, you can see how crazy they are. But when you're in it, you are struggling. I certainly was, to try to resolve and make sense of these things.
You would explain them away. You would find a reason that particular thing was, there's always a reference. There's something you can look up that will either fix that person or acknowledge that what that person has done is okay.
Right.
Or what you've done.
That's right. And the reality, the agreement in Scientology, which really ends up being the bottom line or baseline reality of all Scientologists, is if Hubbard says it, then it's true.
Yes, you get to that point. Yes.
That's right. And that is where, and that's the point, that if there was an insidiousness connected with this definition of reality, if there was a crafty underlying thing that Hubbard was trying to do, I would suspect that would be it. That he would define reality as agreement, meaning within the group of Scientologists, we all agree that what Hubbard says is true, and therefore that is our reality, and therefore that is not just our reality, it is reality as a whole.
I would say that is a current and true statement of a Scientologist.
Perfect.
Yes.
And I'm really glad we talked about this stuff, because I didn't go into this thinking we were going to, talk about these contradictions, but I think that they are a key point of understanding the mind screwery, of it. When we get down into like basic cognitive dissonances of Scientology, I think this is a really key one. Is this point of reality? And but I'm really glad I brought you in on this, because I didn't want to just pontificate out of my own experience on it. I wanted to go over this with somebody else to see where was I on track with what we all agreed on.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Sunny, for being part of this. I really appreciate you, agreeing to go on video with me and have this conversation. I think as I cover these basics of Scientology and cover this series, I might end up consulting with you a couple more times, because I'm going to put information out there based on my study and research of the basics and how I see them as in terms of pros and cons. But I might get feedback again on some of these things that we might need to clarify some points or go into even more detail on specific aspects of it. And I think you'd be a perfect person to do that with. So
Okay.
awesome. All right.
Sounds good.
Cool. All right. So please, folks, leave any comments or feedback in the show notes, the comment section below there. And
I tried.
and I will talk to you guys again soon. Bye-bye.